the Afghan theatre and judging India's responses. Closing the embassy in Kabul does not fall among the questionable decisions in the country's foreign policy stance. The government's decision to pull out all staff from the Indian embassy in Kabul, Afghanistan, including the ambassador, has come in for much adverse comment among analysts and experts. It is argued that all major powers, including China, Russia, and Iran, have maintained their missions. We would have been of much better help to our citizens and others had we remained there instead of packing our bags and leaving in such haste. At the least, it is said, we ought to have had a consular office at the airport, such as the one said to have been kept by the Americans. Some have even stated that the Taliban had requested India to maintain its embassy, meaning thereby that they had assured us of safety. This is a brief summary of the views of those critical of the government. Where India stands. This writer has no means of verifying whether or not the Taliban had made such an approach to the government and would not like to second-guess its decision. But it seems to me that on balance, the government was justified in taking the decision that it did. First, India is not a major power, particularly when it comes to Afghanistan. We have not followed an independent or national interest-based policy towards the events in that country. This is true also of the previous government. We have let the Americans decide our actions. To reiterate, we have never been a major player in Afghanistan. All we did was to support whatever government was installed in Kabul by the United States, first that of Hamid Karzai, and then Ashraf Ghani. Putting all the eggs in the Ghani basket was wrong. He might have been a good academic and authority on developing countries, but he was not a statesman or a good administrator, besides being corrupt and tolerating corruption on a massive scale. Also, he was not a free agent, having to do America's bidding all the time. We poured money, $3 billion worth, in small and medium projects across the country, which has undoubtedly earned us goodwill among the people of Afghanistan. But that did not earn us any role in the political consultations or so-called reconciliation negotiations among the stakeholders. Feelers to the Taliban. In other words, India has not been a relevant player in whatever mattered most in relation to Afghanistan. Criticism of the government for not engaging the Taliban, not establishing contacts with them, is fully justified. It is reported in the media that the government did engage the Taliban of late. The government has not denied this claim. However, if it did begin talking to the Taliban, it was too little, too late. We should have been open about it and established contacts at the senior level of the Taliban, the Afghan theatre and judging India's responses. Seize this opportunity to institutionalize accountability. The discourse on an indemnity waiver for COVID-19 vaccines is a hidden moment for India to act. The Drugs Controller General of India granted emergency use authorization, EUA, to the COVID-19 vaccines manufactured by Moderna and by Johnson & Johnson, in end June and early August 2021, respectively. In addition, India has an opportunity to receive 5 crore to 10 crore doses of Pfizer-BioNTech's mRNA-based vaccine, including through the COVAX mechanism co-led by the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations, CEPI, Gavi and the World Health Organization, before the end of 2021. What it covers. Despite granting EUA for 2 vaccines and a third, that of Pfizer-BioNTech, being eligible for approval, uncertainty on supply and availability remains. One of the primary reasons for this is the Indian government's indecision on requests for indemnity from these manufacturers. Indemnity translates to protection from legal proceedings and liabilities against claims from people who may experience rare and serious adverse events following immunization, AEFI. COVID-19 vaccines are given EUA by the regulatory authorities after a thorough review of their safety and efficacy. However, even though vaccines meet safety parameters, as an immunobiological substance, a vaccine can be associated with rare and serious effects, some of which, such as vaccine-induced immune thrombotic thrombocytopenia, MITT, and myocarditis, are known. Other long-term impacts can only be known over a period of time. There is a need for increased and sustained vaccine supply in India. The country's COVID-19 vaccination drive has been underperforming, and in the 7.5 months since the drive was initiated, only 11% of the total population has been fully vaccinated, and 35.5% has received a single dose. A reason for this is the insufficient supply, which has consistently been less than the projected vaccine availability. The situation persists in spite of the certain regulatory modifications enacted by the government to increase availability, including fast-track authorization of COVID-19 vaccines approved by regulatory authorities in the United States, the United Kingdom, Japan, and Europe, and those included in the World Health Organization, WHO, emergency use listing, waiving off requirements for bridging trials, and doing away with mandatory batch testing for vaccines manufactured abroad. Though these steps have led to the use of 2 additional vaccines, there is a lack of clarity on the definitive timeline on their availability in India. A key bottleneck is demand from manufacturers to grant indemnity. The core argument of the manufacturers is that they have been granted indemnity in their country of origin and have supplied vaccines to other countries only when granted indemnity seize this opportunity to institutionalize accountability. The discourse on an indemnity waiver for COVID-19 vaccines is a hidden moment for India to act. The Drugs Controller General of India granted emergency use authorization (EUA) to the COVID-19 vaccines manufactured by Moderna and by Johnson & Johnson in end June and early August 2021, respectively. In addition, India has an opportunity to receive 5 crore to 10 crore doses of Pfizer-BioNTech's mRNA